On Vanguard Live, I am Precious Chukudi. We give you the front pages of the paper, starting off with Vanguard this morning, and Vanguard is leading with Tinubu sacks service chiefs, dissolves board of MDAs. The writer says Nuhu Ribadu named NSA, Egbetokun acting IGP, Musa emerges CDS, Lagwaja is new COAS, Ogala CNS, Abubakar CS, boards of federal parastatals agencies, institutions, companies dissolved. A photo story showing Tinubu meets Dangote, Bill Gates. And on page 11, NG President Akpabio Abdul Razak Rada MPAN congratulates Asianaba. On page 8, Airtel flags of 5G services, pledges universality for subscribers. NNPC committed to federal government's 2016 net zero plan. Kerry tells US. Stories above. Presidential poll, no technical glitch on February 25th. That's Amazon tells the courts. Subsidy, Labour federal government sets 8 weeks deadline to conclude dialogue. Naira depreciates to 770 naira per dollar as demand pressure hit I and E. And on sports, lastly, on sports, we have a president where hails Osimhen's markmanship. All right, let's take a look at the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian is leading with applause as Tinubu Fire Service Chief dissolves the boards of direct agencies. We can see the new photo story showing Service Chief Malam Nuhu Ribadu, National Security Advisor, Major General C.G. Musa, Chief of Defense Staff, Major General T.A. Lagbaja, Chief of Army Staff, Rear Admiral Ogala, Chief of Naval Staff, Adeni Bashi Adewale, Acting Comptroller of Customs, Major General Udia Deye, Chief of Defense Intelligence, DIG Kayode Egbetokun, Acting Inspector General of Police, and of course AVM HB Abubakar, Chief of Air Staff. Federal government Labour fixed 8 weeks for conclusion of subsidy removal talks. Tinubu pledges to prioritize Nigeria's well-being. Partners Dangote, Bill Gates. Ethno-religious regional sentiment as Senate seeks principal officers. You can see that on page 3. Road diversion. Motorists commuter decry on ending suffering on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. Arik Air shareholders trade accusation over 120 billion naira alleged fraud. And lastly, on the front page of the Guardian, PEPC Tinubu APC failed to stop APM's petition. INEC staff recounts a Beaver's failure. All right, let's take a look at the Nation newspaper. The Nation is leading with Tinubu appoint service chiefs, CDS, NSA, IG, CGC. The writer says more special advisors, SSA named. Board of Government Agency Department Institution dissolved. There's a quote that says that the service chiefs, the acting IG, and the acting CG of Customs are to act in their positions pending their confirmation in accordance with the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Forex policy will open floodgates of foreign investment. Telco's international CEO Dangote OK's reform. Bill Gates meets President Ozekome. Allow doctors access to Kanu. Stories above. LP, OB, INEC lawyers clash at tribunal. Article calls 3 witnesses. Subsidy palliative plan ready August. TUC NLC optimistic. Naira slumps to 770 naira per dollar. Present for Global Summit in Paris. Adebutu's response struck out. All right, let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. The Punch is leading with Tinubu removes the security chiefs, custom boss, appoints Ribadu Egbetokun, others. The writer says Abubakar named Air Chief, Ogala head Navy, Ribadu now NSA, custom gets acting CG, Osman Musawa, Senator Gume, Ibrahim appointed advisors. President travels to France. Full story showing the newly appointed service chiefs. Tribunal against LP INEC lawyer clash over poll materials. Family demand justice for slain Lagos Corp. Tackles Nigerian Navy. Pilgrim fates uncertain as Saudi Arabia set to close airspace. Stories above. Airfare skyrockets as exchange rate hits 700 naira to a dollar. Tinubu woos foreign investors, meet Bill Gates, Airtel founder. Lastly, on the front page of the Punch newspaper, federal government Labour sets up minimum wage committee. And that's how we can take on the front pages of the papers. Join us after the break. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. If you're just joining, still today in the news on Vanguard Life, I am Precious Chukudi. Joining me to talk about some of the stories on the front pages of the papers this morning is Mr. Dayo Akintobi, publisher of Illupeju Today, Ikeja Today, and Lekki Today. It's good to have you join me this morning, sir.
Always a pleasure to be here, Precious. Good morning to all our viewers.
Yeah. All right, let's delve in. Out of the old, in with the new. We have new service chiefs. What's your take? Any shocker?
Well, it's a welcome change. Nigeria is very excited about the fact that we've used the broom to sweep out the old and cleared out the entire apparatus, the entire security architecture gone, and a whole new set of people have come in. So it goes to show that the president is taking this issue of security very seriously. I mean, this is about the beginning of his fourth week in office, and we've seen a lot of moves in the last couple of weeks in terms of the economy. We haven't seen much in terms of security, and there have been some concerns because there have been some killings in the plateau in the last several days. Several hundred people have been killed, and insecurity continues to rage. So there's been a lot of concern about what is this new administration's posture or approach towards solving the insecurity problem. Well, now we know he's cleared out the entire security architecture. If you remember, during the Buhari administration, there was a huge outcry over and over again, change the security chief, change the security chiefs. And when it happened piecemeal. They were cherry-picked. Today it was the chief of army staff. Tomorrow it was one. They didn't do a wholesale purge like has happened here now, to where not just the army, the security chiefs, but even the NSA, the IGP, director of intelligence, even people that are not mainstream security chiefs, but who have anything to do tangentially with security, they've all been replaced. Now, when you look at that singular move, it telegraphs the fact that the new president is serious about tackling insecurity. So you now look and you say, okay, so who are the replacements, and what chances do those ones have of waging a better war than the outgone ones? And word so far is that the people he has chosen are all very competent and capable, that he was advised very well. Because obviously, him just coming into the political process, he cannot have known who the top generals were, who the admirals were, who the flight squadrons. He couldn't have known any of that. But obviously, he's done his homework very well. He's talked to the right people in the right sectors, and they've advised him. Of course, the military runs a seniority-based system, right? Usually where it's based on how far up the ladder you are that you get promotion. But that's not what happened in this case. He's gone below and picked people that are not the most senior, but people he believes are the most competent hands. Now, the first tragedy of that, of course, is that everybody who's above those have to be retired automatically, because you can't have a junior be your oga in the workplace. So there are two levels that are more senior to the people who've been appointed now. All those ones have to retire and go home. But the beauty of it also is that my understanding is that everybody appointed as a security chief, they're all the same year. So they all entered the Defense Academy at the same time. They are classmates. They've known each other for years. They've worked together. Even if they are in different arms of the military, they've collaborated, they've cooperated, they've grown and developed together over the years. They've been in theaters of war. I understand that the chief of army staff, the one appointed as the chief of army staff, that not only has he been in peacekeeping missions in the Joint National Task Force that went to Sierra Leone and other places, but he's also responsible for clearing the Abuja-Kaduna highway of Boko Haram. He's been in the Boko Haram theater and has fought and waged war against Boko Haram. So he knows what he's doing. So I think we should give the president a chance. I think we should wish these people well, give them all our support, especially in areas of intelligence, terrorism, homegrown terrorism. They exist amongst us. They live in the villages. They live among the people. So information is key. So our own role to play is, if we see something, we should say something. That makes their job easier. So we can assist in that way. But I think this is a good move overall. And I think Nigerians can at least rest easy a bit and have some confidence that we'll begin to see some gains in the war against banditry, terrorism, violence, kidnapping, and so on.
All right, there are talks that perhaps the old service chiefs were not given enough resources to fight insecurity. Do you agree with that?
I have a tendency not to, because I personally know that President Buhari held the record of the most military spending since 1999. Out of all the administrations we have had since 1999, President Buhari is the one who spent the most money, both on equipment. You remember the issue of the Super
Yeah.
Tucanos. He has bought all kinds of other jets. He's bought support helicopters. He's bought uh, tanks, armored personnel carriers. He bought all kinds. In terms of equipment, his spending was the largest we've ever had on security since we started in 1999. I also believe he improved the terms of employment of the military, the army. He improved their wages. He tried to boost the morale of the forces. So I would not necessarily say that they didn't have the right resources to fight. And the only issue is sometimes it's not just throwing money at a problem. Because, for example, what we've been fighting, this terrorism problem, because it's not a face to face, hand to hand, man to man battle. Sometimes it's not just necessary firepower that can win such a battle. Sometimes there are things about intelligence, things about technology, eavesdropping devices, monitoring internet chatter, you know, we're using drones and things like that. So it might not necessarily have been that they didn't have the right resources, they didn't have adequate resources. Maybe the resources were not just deployed properly in the right places that will give us an advantage in the war. So I suspect that the military budget, the security budget will continue to be, the defense budget will continue to be high. And let's believe that the new service chiefs will be given the adequate resources to be able to shore up the defenses and give them a more tactical advantage in fighting the insurgency.
All right, let's focus on Nuhu Ribadu. They've been talks about him, now National Security Advisor, and having service chiefs with military background. He has no military background. There's the question of, will these men listen to him, in terms of, because they have been, they've been in the field, they've been, in wars, and they know what it feels like to tackle, insurgency and all of that. And then Nuhu Ribadu. What do you make of that?
Well, the National Security Advisor is not one to give orders, really. He's just a coordinator. It's just that he's the go between the service chiefs and the other security architecture and the president. So he doesn't really give orders to them. He just coordinates their activities and reports to the president. He gives advice to the president about how they should particularly approach security issues. And then the president looks at his advice, makes a decision, informs him. He now goes back to the service chiefs for the implementation of those policy decisions. So he's not giving orders per se, but I understand Nigerians' concerns that is somebody who has a police background, is he well versed enough to deal with national security issues? Because police is mostly all about maintaining law and order and fighting crime. Fighting terrorism is a whole different ballgame. You might the particular security challenges that face the country now might not necessarily be within the purview of Nuhu Ribadu's experience, because he's more of fighting money laundering, EFCC's
Yes.
economic and financial crimes. Although he was a police commissioner, I think he was an assistant police commissioner before he got appointed to the EFCC. So clearly he's been a crime fighter most of his career. But the crimes he's been fighting have not necessarily been crimes of national security. They've been crimes of security of lives and property. And then later on, they were crimes of economic and financial crimes. So national security is not something he's used to. And historically, national security has always been within the purview of the military. If you look at all those appointed since 1999 to date, even the outgone one, Monguno, was a general. They've all come from the army. Why is that? Because the military is charged with securing our territorial borders. The military is taught to kill. Police is not. Police is taught to investigate and apprehend and prosecute. Army is taught to kill. The war we are waging now against terrorism requires all-out battle to kill and subdue. We're not trying to arrest and prosecute anybody because they're out trying to kill our people. So it's kill or be killed. So the concern is, will somebody who is more used to enforcement of law and order to apprehend and prosecute be able to direct his efforts in a battle that requires much more than enforcement of law and order or pursuit of economic crimes, but is a matter of life and death. It borders on issues of life and death. Police are not really trained to kill. So if the situation comes up, will he be able to advise the security chiefs, go out and do this, go out and do that in a way that doesn't actually fit with his training? So that's a bit of a concern. But the flip side is, I've been reading places where they say global best practices in all the advanced democracies is that it is from the police that the national security advisor is selected. Well, I don't quite buy that, because I remember Condoleezza Rice, who was George W. Bush, the second Bush. She was his national security advisor. She had cause to come to Nigeria a couple of times. She didn't come from a police background. Matter of fact, she didn't really come from a military background either, but she came from academia, but her academic background was in the theater of war, conflict resolution, war games, and things like that. So at least she had somewhat of a military background, even if it wasn't academic and not necessarily out in the field. So I don't know that it's actually accurate to say that global best practices is that national security advisor comes from the police and that this is the best thing to do. One thing I do know is that Nuhu Ribadu has been very close to the current president for a long time. If we even remember, he was once the ACN presidential candidate when the president had floated that party, Action Congress of Nigeria, and was the party chairman or the party leader. There was a year when Nuhu Ribadu was the presidential candidate. And even though he lost that election, ever since then, you've always seen him in the presence of Bola Tinubu. So I would say this is more of a political appointment in my view. This is more of an appointment of somebody who is close to me, but that I believe has the necessary competence to do the job.
All right. In the president's inaugural speech, he said security was going to be his top priority. Now, looking at the new service chiefs, I mean, we had the challenge during the last president's administration, where we were calling for the restructuring of service chiefs and all of that. And what are the expectations for these new service chiefs?
Well, the expectations are very high because, well, first of all, it's a new administration. We have very high hopes that the administration will improve a lot, much better than how it has been in the last 8 years. So the expectations overall generally are very high. But in light of the fact that security is one of our foremost concerns, I mean, security, the economy, and corruption, those were the three pillars that the last government came in on. And by the time that government was going out, those three issues had worsened, not improved. So when you look at what's all in the news recently, and you look at how many killings are going on in the terrorist-prone areas, Plateau, Zamfara, and all those places, you know that the situation is quite critical. And as such, action needs to be taken. And I believe that is why the president has cleaned house completely. He didn't pick one or two or three or four. He got rid of everybody, down to the IGP, down to the customs, Controller General of Customs. He cleaned house completely. I think only one or two survived, I think in the intelligence sector. But he cleaned house, and the message that he's sending is that it's not going to be business as usual. And the people he picked is also showing that he means business about fighting insecurity. So I would say let's give him a chance and let's see. Situation is quite bad as it is. I believe that it can't get any worse than it already is. So let's give the new people a chance and let's see what they come up with.
All right. Moving on, organized labor and federal government agreed on an 8 weeks deadline to trash out all issues and implement resolution. How do you react to this?
I was quite displeased, I'll tell you the truth, because I look at it and I'm out on the street every day as a journalist, and Nigerians are suffering. I mean, this notion of fuel subsidy removal is a good thing, but everybody has said, and we continue to say, that whatever cushioning measures should have been put in place before. And even if it wasn't put in place before, it should have been put in place immediately after. But nothing has happened in terms of cushioning the effects of the fuel subsidy removal. Nigerians are suffering. People are trekking. Food is so expensive. I saw somebody fill his tank for 45,000 naira yesterday, and he said it'll last him 4 days. How is he going to cope? You know, so things are really, really very difficult. And that is why sometimes you believe that our leaders live in ivory towers. They live in such cocoons and they have such cloistered lives that it's easy to say, please bear with me. This is something we have to do for the good of the country. It's a long-term plan, but please help make sacrifices, but none of them is making sacrifices. They're not hurting. They are still able to buy their food and eat the normal meal. They're still able to fuel their cars and have long convoys. They're not feeling the pain. But the average Nigerian is feeling the pain badly. So to have seen the outcome of that meeting yesterday is that 8 weeks more. All of us had been looking forward to June 19th when they said they were going to go on strike. They called off the strike on June 5th, give themselves a 2-week window to resume talks. We had assumed that by the time they came out of those talks yesterday, there will be some concrete, solid proposal put in front of the Nigerian people as to what's going to alleviate this difficulty for us. So I was really surprised that Labour would accept that 8 more weeks, which is 2 more months. What they're telling us essentially is what we are facing now, at a very minimum, we have to go another 2 months of working, 2 months of no money, because now our salaries don't cover. Some people can't even go to work because their salaries, there's nothing left. They don't have enough to cover transport to go and come. They can't feed. So the reality on ground is different from the theory. Abuja propagates theory that is not grounded in the reality of everyday Nigerians. We need to get out on the street. I'm waiting to see a president who will appoint a people's advocate, like a commissioner of people, commissioner of
That would be good to see.
commissioner of people's difficulties, who will be out in the street mixing among us every day, because they just theorize from Abuja. They don't really feel the pain. So we need to have some of their people mixing among everyday people to understand what our problems are. Abuja doesn't get it. I guess Alausa doesn't get it either. Most of the government houses don't get the problem. Otherwise, they'll be telling us to wait another 8 weeks in penury, in stagnation, in poverty, in impoverishment, in starvation. 8 weeks? I'm not sure I can go 8 days. They're saying 8 weeks. So no, I'm not pleased.
That is really a lot, yeah. All right, moving on. Amazon Web Service Incorporated, INEC engaged the services to provide the technical support during the election. I said they did not record any technical glitches on February 25th. And also, petitioners are accusing INEC of refusing to give them like electoral documents to back up their claim in court. What's your take?
Interesting. This one about Amazon is a bombshell, because INEC, of course, has been talking about failures of its technology is what stopped it or inhibited it or disturbed it from being able to carry out some of its functions in real time. So for Amazon to now come up and say, well, we were the ones who supplied you internet service, satellite services, this, and we didn't record any technological glitches, it puts the lie to INEC's claim. So it puts INEC on the hot seat, really, because INEC's entire defense is that we had technological failures that we had no control over. We had no control over it. We subscribed to a service from a third-party ISP, internet service provider, which in this case is Amazon Web Services. And their technological glitches is what stopped us from being able to upload from Beavers to IREV. Well, Amazon has now come out and said that's a lie. We didn't have any technological glitches. So don't put INEC in a good place at all, because now the question becomes, was it intentional manipulation? Was it intentional conjuring up of this glitch? Maybe it didn't really happen, but they made it happen just so they could alter results. It now puts a lot of pressure on INEC to be able to prove its innocence in terms of the claims that the results were either manipulated or they were altered, or that there was something untoward about that upload not happening. That upload not happening was to allow manipulation of results. It now looks like it could be real, because the provider of the service has now said, I didn't have any technical glitch, I delivered, but INEC didn't deliver. So where is the breakdown? So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But of course, they're in court, so Amazon has given its defense. Now INEC will come and defend itself against Amazon's claim, and that's what the whole judicial process is all about. It's a search for the truth, and I hope the truth will come out at the end of the day. This issue about INEC not giving documents to Labour Party, I remember Atiku also complained about that about 2 weeks ago. He said they're not giving him documents, and I asked myself, if INEC has nothing to hide, why are they withholding documents? I know it's a lot of stuff, because you have 3 major parties, you have 774 local governments, you have couple 100,000 polling units, they are challenging several hundreds. So the number of documents is voluminous. So there might be some logistics challenges that INEC has. But the way it's looking now, The fact that Atiku complained and Obi is now complaining, it looks like it's intentional on his part to drag his feet. So by the time you take that in collaboration with Amazon, saying that it didn't have any technological glitches, it looks like INEC has something to hide. So I would advise INEC to come clean. Oh, come clean. You are before a judicial panel. Come clean. Let the chips fall where they may. If you messed up some kind of way, let us know, and we'll see how to move forward from there. But it's not looking good on the INEC end for now.
All right, moving on. Governor OBASEKI has said that we spend about $500 million annually on importation of dairy products. How can we refocus on agriculture to drive economic growth?
Well, before we found oil, we were an agricultural-based economy. Before we found oil, we exported cocoa, we exported rubber, we produced almost everything we ate before we found oil. And that's why they said said oil is a curse, because once we found oil, we let everything else go to pot. But now we're in a situation where we're importing almost everything we eat. We only produce an infinitesimal fraction of what it takes to feed this country. So that exposes us to problems. There's food insecurity. There's issues of foreign exchange. That's why the naira is always under pressure, because we're always looking for dollars to pay for import. We import wheat, import sugar, import this, import everything we eat, or at least the basic food stuff that we use to make other things, we import. So what Obaseki is saying is that his government has been very pro-agriculture. He was speaking when some foreign investors came to visit him who are agriculture-based, and they're looking at how to collaborate with the Edo State government to set up extensive agricultural processing, farms and all that. And he was saying, yes, we're very interested in this because we recognize the fact that our people are suffering because food is expensive, because most of the food we eat is imported. And so as a government, they want to ease the burden on their citizens, as well as create wealth and create employment. So it's a win-win all the way around if you look at it, if we're able to produce what we eat. And you would ask yourself that, why is it so difficult in Nigeria? We've got so much land, and most of it is arable. If you throw a seed almost anywhere in Nigeria, it will sprout, almost anywhere. So we've got fertile land, arable land, and we've got plenty of land. Just to give you an example, just drive down the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway on your right and on your left once you've passed the areas of development. Say, once you pass the Shagamu interchange and you're going. Yes, thousands of hectares on the left and on the right that are lying fallow. And it's like that through the rest of Nigeria. There's empty land everywhere that could be agriculture, but agriculture requires intensive labor. It's long term before it starts yielding. So we've gotten complacent, we've gotten lazy, because oil, you just dig a hole in the ground, it sprouts, and oil is coming out, and the IOCs, international oil companies, are lining up to give you money. You don't have to lift a finger. You don't have to do anything. But with farming, you have to sweat, you have to labor. So we've basically gotten lazy. And that's what Obaseki is saying is, let's gird our loins, let's pull up our socks, let's start doing this thing so that we're less dependent on imports, we're less dependent on the dollar, we can feed ourselves, we can create employment, we can generate wealth. So he's making sense.
All right, let's take a look at Mr. and Mrs. before we go. And Mrs. is speaking this month. She says, I spent part of the money you gave me for housekeeping on clothes and shoes. So what are you going to do? Call the EFCC? And then Mr. says, that won't be necessary. As my wife, you're permanently under house arrest.
Okay, I get it. EFCC deals with misappropriation of funds. And Mrs. has misappropriated the housekeeping money to buy clothes and shoes.
Exactly.
So her punishment is house arrest, which is what the EFCC does to public servants who misappropriate public funds. All right, nice one, Mr.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Daya Akintobi, publisher of Lipeji Today, Lekiti and Kejoti. Thank you for joining us this morning and sharing your thought with us.
Always a pleasure.
Also, remember that you can equally like, share, and subscribe on all our social media platforms showing on your screen. To find out up-to-date stories, go to our website, www.vanguardndr.com, to find out more. I am Precious Shukudi.